Come Harcourt, out with it. Why her? A clergyman's ward with £90 and no connections. Half the county is asking, and none of us dare. She was convenient, said the Duke of Harcourt. He heard the door in the same instant, not opening, closing, the soft, deliberate click of a latch let down by somebody who had decided not to be seen. Tobias turned. The library at Harcourt Chase was empty behind him, except for Sir Rowland Peake and the fire, and on the small table by the door stood a tray with 2 glasses on it that had not been there 4 minutes before. Was that? Peake began. Tobias was already across the room. The passage was empty. The hall was empty. In the long gallery he found only a footman who said, in the careful voice servants use when they have decided which side they are on, that Miss Sedgeley had gone up, Your Grace, and had asked for a candle, and had said nothing at all. He should have gone up after her that night. He has thought since that everything in his life turned upon the fact that he did not, because he was 33 and a duke, and had never in his life had to run after anybody, and because the truth he would have had to say on that landing was one he had spent 2 years not saying. The betrothal ball was on the following evening. 300 people came to Harcourt Chase to see the woman the Duke had chosen. Rowena Sedgeley, who had lived 4 miles off in a rectory since she was 11, who taught the village Sunday school, who had £90 in the 4% and a gown made over by her aunt. They had been betrothed 6 weeks. Everybody in 3 counties knew the story. The September storm on Harcourt Down, the mare that went lame, the shepherd's hut, the 11 hours until the water went off the ford, and the search party of 14 men that had found them at daybreak, sitting decently on opposite sides of a cold hearth, with a dog between them. Nothing had happened in that hut, nothing whatever. Tobias had told her so at the time, and had told his aunt so afterward, and had told the bishop so, and it had made not the smallest difference to anybody, because a woman's name is not a fact, it is a rumor with better manners. So he had offered for her within the week, and she had accepted, and everyone had agreed that the Duke of Harcourt had behaved very handsomely, and Tobias had let them think it. He had let her think it too. That was the crime. At 10 o'clock, in the middle of the ball, in the great hall with 300 people in it, and the chandeliers blazing, Rowena Sedgeley came to him and put out her hand. On the palm of it was his grandmother's ring. Your Grace, she said, not loudly, but she had chosen her moment, and the moment was a lull, and a lull in a hall of that size carries like a bell. Will you take this back, please? Rowena, you have behaved with the greatest generosity toward me, and I shall say so to anyone who asks, all my life. Her voice was absolutely level. She did not look at the room. She looked at him. You offered for me because I was in a difficulty, and you are an honorable man, and I accepted because I was frightened, and I have had 6 weeks to consider what it would be to be married for 11 hours of bad weather. I release you. There is no fault in you, and there is none in me, and I am very grateful, and I hope you will be happy. That is not. Please take it, she said. My hand is shaking, and I would rather they did not see it. He took it. God forgive him, he took it, because she asked, and because 300 people were listening, and because he could not think of one sentence to say in front of them that would not have made it worse. Rowena curtsied to him, properly, deeply, the curtsy of a woman to a duke, and not of a bride to a bridegroom, and walked the length of the great hall of Harcourt Chase alone, and the crowd opened for her, and she went out at the door, and the rectory gig took her home at 10:20. She never said one word against him, not that night, not ever. That was what ruined him. She had accused him, the county would have taken sides, and half of them would have been his. That is how these things work. But she said nothing. She said, to every woman who came to the rectory to fish, that the Duke of Harcourt had been generous beyond anything she deserved, and that the fault was entirely her own for having accepted in a fright. She said it so consistently, and with such transparent good faith, that within a fortnight the whole neighborhood had arrived, by itself, at the only possible conclusion. Sir Rowland Peake told him what it was, having drunk enough to be honest, in November. They know what you said, Toby. Somebody heard it, a footman, a maid, the devil knows. She was convenient. It is in every drawing-room from here to Ashbury, and because she will not say a syllable against you, they have all decided she is a saint and you are the coldest article in England, and there is nothing you can do about it, because the only person who could contradict them is the one person who will not. The winter went hard. His aunt, who had brought him up, did not come to Harcourt at Christmas, and wrote to say that she had known his mother and could not sit at his table. Two of his oldest friends found reasons. His tenants were perfectly civil, and had, somehow, all begun to call him Your Grace instead of Sir, which from men whose fathers had taught him to shoot was a sentence of a kind. In the village, the school subscription list came back, with his own name struck through by whoever had carried it, and the sum made up out of shillings. He deserved every part of it, and he found, to his surprise, that he did not mind any of it, because none of it was the thing that kept him awake. The thing that kept him awake was that she had been right about the wrong fact. He had not offered for her out of honor. He had wanted to marry Rowena Sedgley since the spring of the year before last, when he had come upon her in the Sunday school with 11 small girls and a slate, teaching them the multiplication table by singing it, and had stood in the doorway of a whitewashed room and understood that he was in a great deal of trouble. He had done nothing about it for 2 years, because a duke who offers for a clergyman's penniless ward makes her the joke of the county, and he had not been able to see a road. Then the storm had come, and the lame mare, and the 11 hours by a cold hearth in which she had talked to him about the school and the drains and her aunt's rheumatism, and had made him laugh 4 times. And at daybreak, 14 men had walked in and handed him, on a plate, the only excuse he would ever get. He had taken it. He had taken it and called it honor, and let her believe she was a duty, and when Peake asked him in the library why her, with that particular knowing gleam, a man an inch from guessing the truth, Tobias had heard himself say the coldest 2 words available, because being pitied for doing a kindness was bearable, and being seen in love was not. Vanity, not honor, not calculation. Vanity of the commonest kind in front of a man he did not even like. In February, he began to write to her, and got as far as 4 lines each time and burned 11 letters. In March he found out what the real obstacle was, and it was not her pride, and it was not the county. It was himself. The rectory at Netherfold was in the gift of the Duke of Harcourt. Rowena's uncle held that living, and had held it for 19 years, and his house, his income, his coals, his old age and the roof over the head of the girl he had raised were all in law at Tobias's pleasure. Which meant that any letter Tobias sent, any call he paid, any word he spoke, would arrive in that house with the whole weight of the advowson behind it. And Rowena Sedgley, who had walked out of a ballroom rather than be married for 11 hours of bad weather, would sooner have gone to the workhouse than accept a man she could not be certain her uncle was safe from. He sat with that for 3 days. Then he sent for his attorney. "You wish to do what, Your Grace?" "Convey the advowson of Netherfold out of my hands, to trustees, the bishop, the archdeacon, and the churchwardens for the time being." Mr. Fitch put down his pen. "It has been in your family since the reign of Queen Anne." "Yes." It is worth 400 a year in the presentation, and it is a considerable piece of influence in this county. Yes. May the reason be inquired after. You may inquire, said Tobias. You will not be answered. Draw it and let it be executed before Lady Day, and make it irrevocable, and be certain, Fitch, be entirely certain that no successor of mine can undo it. If there is a way to undo it, find the way and shut it. It was done on the 24th of March. He signed it in the library at Harcourt Chase, at the same table where he had said the two words, which struck him at the time as the only tidy thing about the whole business. He did not tell her. He did not write. He put the deed in his coat and did nothing at all for 11 days, and then it was Easter Monday and the Netherfold school treat. The school treat was held in the meadow behind the rectory every Easter Monday, and half the parish came to it, and the Duke of Harcourt had never once attended in his life. He walked there 4 miles in the rain that comes and goes at Easter, and arrived at 3 o'clock with his boots ruined and the deed in his breast pocket. 90 people in a wet meadow, and every one of them stopped. Rowena was at the trestle table with a tea urn and a stack of mugs, and her sleeves turned back. She had grown thinner. She straightened, and did not go pale, and did not curtsy. Your Grace. Miss Sedgley. Tobias took his hat off. You are not obliged to speak to me. You are not obliged to hear me. But I am going to say a thing to this parish, since it was this parish that had to make up my subscription in shillings, and then I shall go, and you need not answer me at all. He turned to the meadow, 90 faces and a tea urn. In October, in my own library, a friend of mine asked me why I had offered for Miss Sedgley, and I told him she was convenient. Some of you have heard that. All of you have heard it by now. It was said by me in those words, and I have never denied it, and I do not deny it now. Nobody moved. Somebody's teacup rattled on a saucer. It was a lie, Tobias said. That is the whole of my business here. Not a hard truth, not a coarse remark, not a duke being careless. A lie told to a man I do not even like, because he had come within an inch of guessing that I was in love with her, and I found I could bear to be thought cold more easily than I could bear to be seen. He heard the meadow take a breath. 2 years ago I stood in the door of that schoolroom and heard her teaching the 7 times table by singing it, and I have not had a peaceful hour since. I did not offer for her out of honor. There was no honor in it. The storm gave me an excuse, and I took it with both hands and let her believe she was a duty. And when she gave me back my grandmother's ring in front of 300 people, she was quite right about everything except one particular, which is that she was never convenient to me in her life. She has been the most inconvenient thing that ever happened to me, and I would not have 1 hour of it back. Rowena had put down the mug she was holding. Her hands were on the trestle table. There is one more matter, Tobias said, and then I have finished. He took the deed out of his coat and unfolded it. This is a conveyance executed on the 24th of March, by which the advowson of this parish passes out of the hands of the Duke of Harcourt forever, to the bishop, the archdeacon, and your churchwardens. Mr. Sedgley holds Netherfold at their pleasure now, and not at mine, and no duke of my line can ever present to it again. It is irrevocable. My attorney has been at some pains about that, and he thinks me mad. He put it into the hands of the nearest churchwarden, a wheelwright named Gad, who took it as though it were hot. The reason, Tobias said, is that until this morning every kind word I could have said to Miss Sedgley would have arrived in her uncle's house with 400 a year and a roof standing behind it, and she would have had to weigh it, and she has already been asked once in her life to accept a man for a reason that was not love. She will not be asked twice. So I have made myself powerless in this parish before speaking, and now I have nothing whatever to offer her but my own name, which as you are all aware is not worth much at present. He turned back to the trestle table. That is all. Good afternoon, Miss Sedgley. You need not. Sit down, Rowena said. I beg your pardon. Sit down on that bench, Your Grace, before you fall over, because you have walked 4 miles in the rain, and you are the color of the tea urn. Her voice was not level any more. Not at all. And do not tell me what I need not do. I have been told for 6 months by every woman in this county what I need not do, and I have been very gracious about all of it, and I am extremely tired of being a saint. Tobias sat down on the bench. 90 people discovered, with one accord, an urgent interest in the far end of the meadow. Rowena came round the trestle table, and stood in front of him with her sleeves still turned back. 2 years, she said. 2 years. You stood in the door of my schoolroom in the spring of the year before last, and I dropped a slate, and I have thought about it approximately once a week ever since, and told myself I was a fool. She was shaking. Do you know what the worst of the 6 months has been? Not the ring, not the ballroom. It has been every single person telling me how generous you were, and having to agree with them, when the thing I actually wanted was for one of them to say that a man might have wanted me. A man wanted you, Tobias said, for 2 years, without one word from you to encourage him, and would have gone on wanting you for 20, and has just given away a piece of his inheritance in a wet field to make quite sure you would never have to wonder why. You might have simply told me. I might, in October on a landing with a candle. He looked up at her. I have thought about that landing every night since. Rowena, I am not going to ask you today. You have had enough asked of you. I shall come next Monday and every Monday and carry the urn, and one day when there is nobody in this meadow at all, if you can bear it, you may tell me to ask. Rowena Sedgley looked down at him for a long moment. No, she said. No. You have made an enormous public performance of giving away all your power, she said, and you are not now going to be modest at me for a 12-month. Ask. So the Duke of Harcourt stood up in a wet meadow behind a rectory, in front of 90 people and a tea urn, and asked. She said yes before he had finished the sentence, which he considered afterward the single greatest compliment he ever received. They were married at Netherfold in the June, by her uncle, in a church whose living was in the gift of a bishop and 2 churchwardens, one of whom wept audibly throughout. His aunt came and sat at the front, and had a good deal to say afterward about young men who could not simply speak plainly, and said it while holding both his hands. The grandmother's ring went back on Rowena's finger, and stayed. The school at Netherfold was rebuilt in stone the following year, and the subscription list for it survives. The first name on it is the Duchess of Harcourt's, and the second is her husband's, and beside his there is a note in her hand which reads, "Paid in full, and not from convenience."